Our next session, as I mentioned, it's about our Google Analytics, and this one's called Boost Your Visibility. I'm going to introduce our speakers. First, they're with Surfrider Media, and Stu started Surfrider Media to simplify digital advertising for business. So he brings over 10 years of experience in digital media, including stops at premier New York media agencies and the world-class publisher monetization services. When he's not working, I love this, Stu can be found playing golf, walking, cakewalk, bothering his wife, tis, and working to perfect the perfect breakfast burrito. So he needs to do all right. We also have with Surfrider Media, we have Kelly, and she is a marketing associate. So let's welcome them and let's begin.
Everybody, thank you for having us. First, I want to apologize because as we were kind of going through everything the last couple of days, we realized the pre-work we sent you was probably a little bit complicated.
To say the least.
Yeah, so we're going to try to simplify it as much as we can. It's kind of what we deal with on a day-to-day, and then as we push it out, we're like, that was probably too much. So that's my bad. So again, I'm Stu. This is Kelly. Let's kick off. So we're going to be going through pretty much all things Google today. If there's any questions or you need anything handled in real time, Kelly can come around and help. So just let us know. So at its core with Google, there's kind of two main ways to show up, right? There's SEO and PPC. Just by a show of hands, has anyone attempted either of these? All right, PPC, and Google Ads, and then SEO, everyone else? It is, that's a good way to put it. So we're gonna breeze through SEO today because, like we said, it's a little bit more complicated and there's a little bit more just general long-term work that goes into it. But we'll give you some quick tips, tricks, and just stuff that you can work on. And then with PPC, we're actually the goal is to have everyone launch actual Google Ads campaign today. And then we'll have 3 follow-up sessions in the coming weeks to talk about those campaigns, make optimizations, make changes, etc. So, like I said, at the very core, SEO is generally considered free traffic. It's a big investment up front because of time and energy, but it should pay dividends in the long run. Whereas PPC, you can turn on a campaign today and you'll start seeing traffic hopefully by the end of the day. So they're two very different concepts. Obviously with SEO, it's free, and PPC, can get a little bit costly pretty quickly, especially if you're not setting your campaign up with goals and tracking, etc. So real quick, those top basically images are going to be more the PPC sponsored paid ads, where this would be your first ranking on an SEO ad. So this one is, in my opinion, going to be much more valuable, but there was an incredible amount of work that went into get this #1 placement for a word like surfboards. Any questions so far? Okay, so SEO, search engine optimization, why is it important? Well, more than half of all traffic on the internet is going to come from your search engines. A majority of people are going to start any search for product, trip, pretty much anything in a search engine. Behaviors are shifting a little toward social, but this stat's still pretty accurate. So, there's a ton of traffic behind to your websites. So we're going to go over these main concepts real quickly, and then we'll spend some time to talk about the Google Business Profile specifically. And then you will notice there's going to be some overlap between when we talk about SEO and PPC. But ultimately, they're 2 different concepts, so just keep that in mind. And then just something to consider right now, Google estimates that over 90% of all websites don't get any organic traffic. So just a huge missed opportunity. So when thinking about SEO, the first and most important concept is going to be your keyword research. So what does that mean? How does it matter to you? It's ultimately what people are searching in the Google bar and the results that are going to show up. So you have your seed words and your long tail keywords. Seed word means something a little bit more basic like surfboards, where your long tail is going to be custom handmade wood surfboard. So obviously, you're going to get much more volume on something like surfboards, but it's going to be much harder for a small business and any business with limited tools and resources to show up to that word. So we have to be creative and find more custom phrases and more niche long tail phrases that we can show up for. So we will quickly go over a little bit later the Google Keyword Planner, which is a free tool. It's an okay tool, to be honest, but it will work. And then just some other tools that you can always do keyword research with. SEMrush, which has a free offering, a fairly limited offering, and then a much more robust paid product. And then Spy Food, which is another paid product, much cheaper, but ultimately not as good as something like SEMrush. So if we look at this kind of sample keywords, you can kind of see how the more long tail you get, the less difficult the word is going to become to rank. And ultimately, the better chance you as a business is going to have to show up in that top page of Google for it. So if you don't show up in that top page, chances are you're not going to show up at all. 99.9% of all Google searches don't make it to the second page. And then with that research, starting to move on to the optimization of your keywords. So each page that you have should be considered a unique way to earn traffic. So you can see a global company, for instance, their 3 main pages are ultimately going after 3 different types of keywords within the same form, right? So we did some research. We said, okay, well, where is there an opportunity for us to find or rank in these keywords? And it was these questions or these more niche long tail concepts. And then we're able to name our meta descriptions and our page titles accordingly. The key is when you're doing keyword research and planning, that keyword should appear early and often in your paragraphs and your titles and your H1 headers, things like that. Any questions so far on keywords? So with SEO, the most important thing you can do to improve your website's ranking is going to be just the content you offer on site. There's 100 different metrics that Google looks at, but they have said that the most important is going to be high value, high quality content that you create in your site. So whether that's having a blog, videos, industry studies, extended lists, right? Like the top 30 bars of Tacoma, having those types of content on your site will ultimately help you rank higher for the keywords that you're going after and give people a reason to come to your website. And then outside of that, the more the technical area. So making sure that your website is fast, making sure that it has a easy navigatable menu, being mobile friendly. All over 60% of all internet traffic is going to come from a mobile device. So if your website isn't set up to be mobile friendly, you will get punished for that. And then just a good user experience, right? Well, Google can't necessarily track if your website is pleasing to your customers, but they'll use the different metrics like engagement rate, time spent on site, average pages per session, things like that, to determine if you're offering your users a good experience with that high quality content. And then just, again, something to consider that if you're able to increase your web page's load speed by just a second, you could increase conversions by up to 27%. website. So speed is important, especially when we're talking mobile. So some of the tools that you can use for the technical SEO, Google Search Console, which is going to be basically your window into how Google views your website. Something like Tiny PNG, which will take all the images and upload into your website, make the file smaller, and then as a result, help your page load faster. And then just a general website creator to get a sense of a third-party grade on your website, and we'll look for things like broken links, broken pages, keyword analysis, things like that. So again, SEMrush is a great tool, but if you just Google website grader, there should be a number of options that you can use as well. So link building is also an important aspect of SEO. But it's a tough one because it's harder to control, right? So at its core, there's two different types of link building: there's internal and external. Internal would be, on your home page, you link to your product page. On a blog, you posting to that same product page, and making sure that a user can navigate and get the different pages within your website fairly easily. So that is an important part of the whole SEO process. But then the external links will definitely carry more weight. So without going into too much detail, there's a bunch of different types of external links. But for most businesses, you benefit from talking to your partners and the different vendors that you work with, and just either putting it in your contract, asking them, offering them the same thing. Hey, can I have a link on your website? You want to write them a blog or a quick story about your website, just let them throw it on there. In doing so, it helps bring your authority up that hints to Google that, hey, this website is authentic, it adds value, people care about it, they want to share this content with their users as well. So we talk about Google Search Console. Hopefully most of you were able to access this for your websites. This again is going to be a great tool to determine what people are searching and already going to your website if you are getting that traffic, which keywords you might be showing up for, and then ultimately where you rank on those keywords. So generally the goal is the top 10 to be on that first page. The more you can get, obviously, the better. But being comfortable with a tool like Google Search Console will help you in the long run. And then in addition, it can help you determine which websites are linking to your website. And then if there's any broken links, technical scores, things like that. So if we have time, we can briefly run through it, but I think we'll probably spend most of our time on Google Ads. So lastly, Google Business Profile. Does everyone here have a Google Business Profile and were they able to set theirs up? Perfect. So this is one of the most important aspects of specifically local SEO. So within SEO, there's local and then just general website SEO or website optimization. For any of you brick and mortars who are going after the general Tacoma region, right? This is a must. Ensuring that you're getting reviews, ensuring that your description is based on the keywords that you're after, and then it's just up to date, right? You're posting updates, you're keeping your photos relevant, and using it as a tool, right? I think with Square, you're able to connect your ordering portal so people can actually order directly from this. But ultimately, without this, you're not even able to show up on Google Maps. And again, if you're a local business, you don't show up on Google Maps, that's a huge detriment. So definitely something to consider, definitely something to spend some time digging into, and ultimately just making sure, like I said, it's updated, relevant. And then I do know with Square, after somebody makes a purchase, you can send an email to those customers asking them to write a review and offering them a link directly to your Google Business Profile. When they do that, if they do that by replying to those reviews with the keywords that you're interested in, that's just another way to ensure that you're able to compete for those keywords. So that would probably be one of the biggest things for SEO. If there's any takeaway here, focus on your Google Business profile, especially for the local traffic. So any questions on SEO in general? As we said, we kind of wanted to breeze through that and spend the rest of the time on Google Ads. Perfect. So yeah, like we said, there is going to be some overlap between some of the concepts and just generally what you do. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was flipping. Oh.
Oh, no.
I didn't even have much, so I.
You know, I was flipping my paper and I thought.
Okay. I walked in on the screen, I was just curious, you were talking about the, I think it was talking about the load time on the page, it said small PNG, but file, photo,
Yeah.
something like that. Why is that significant?
So ultimately, a couple of reasons. One, we know that by having a faster website, your conversion rates will increase, and then Google will punish you for having a slower website. So most images that you just, take a photo, download, or whatever, are going to be a fairly large file size. So the tiny PNG will reduce the file size by X%, however much you want to do it, without reducing quality too much. And then just it will help it load faster. And in doing so, ultimately, or hopefully, increase your conversion rates if you're operating e-commerce or things like
It puts you lower on the search.
if you have a slower website, yeah. So it doesn't necessarily like put you lower, it just doesn't help you get higher. Okay, so PPC. PPC can be referred to as anything that you're paying for clicks. So it could be Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, but we are going to be focusing on Google, free Google Ads. So again, kind of the same concept of things we're going to be covering. One thing that might get a little frustrating is if there are going to be some blanket statements that might not apply to everybody, or it depends based on what your business is or what you're doing. So sorry for that. But also know that everyone has the opportunity as a result of DSAP to schedule 30 minutes with us. And in that time, we can hopefully dig into those more unique one-on-one questions or one-off scenarios that not every business will face. So budgeting, just how do you think of a budget? How do you determine how much you should be spending on Google Ads? So everyone will be given a $500 grant from Kitita to launch their campaign originally. That will have to be spent by May 12th in order to get the full amount. So how do we budget it? How do we pace that? How do we figure out how much we're going to spend? Generally, the average business outside of that budget would spend 5 to 10% of their budget on marketing. And then with Google Ads, that could be the full 10%, half of that. So it's kind of up to you as a business owner to decide within that range how much you're going to spend. With Google Ads, they use a formula, 30.4 times your daily budget to get your monthly spend, 30.4 being the average amount of days in a month per year. It's important to note that if your daily budget is $18.51, you could spend up to 2 times that amount in a day, but there's no guarantee that you're going to spend that amount. But in doing this formula, you can determine the exact maximum that you would spend in a given month. So we're going to set everybody up with this $18.51 per day. In theory, you could spend up to $562 over the month. But again, we're only going to be running for about 27 days. So likely going to be right in that range. Any questions with budgeting or I guess the DSAP grant in general?
So we have till what date to use it?
May 12th,
May,
invoices are due.
okay, May 12th. And so that 27 days, does that start like now?
So the goal is that when you guys leave, we'll have a campaign launched. But yeah, that's why there's a little bit of flexibility if we don't launch point today or it's next week, something like that.
Okay.
But sooner better than later.
And you have to spend the $500.
Correct. So whatever is spent after the 27 days, you guys will be able to invoice that amount. But after May 12th, it won't be, you won't be able to invoice it anymore.
So you get up to $400 and then you get another 400.
So in order to qualify for the Google Ads credit, you have to spend $500. In order to receive the KITA $500, you have to invoice by 5/12. So whatever's spent by that date,
So you do have to spend $500.
in order to get the next 500. Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do we, so then we must probably book it on Google, get a receipt.
Yeah.
And then we submit that to Kaitita with the invoice, we like attach it or something.
Yeah, so I'll quickly show everyone how to pull invoices. But it's a fairly straightforward process.
My question is more in regards to, I guess, how Google does that, so I don't know. But, so once you pay for however you structured 10 days worth of however much that gets you for $500, you get the credit after, right? They give you, Google gives you the credit after you spend the $500.
Yeah, so once you spend $500, the next $500 will be a credit from Google.
Okay, now my question is like, usually you can go in, increase a boost of a post. I'm wondering if you can use that, or do you have to, is it a totally separate transaction? Like you guys do another ad for $500 or a credit towards the next one, but you can't use it to increase the same ad.
You could, so I mean, if you wanted, if you guys wanted to spend $1,000 over the next month,
That's what I'm.
yeah, like you're ultimately that $1,000 would be covered in the next month.
Okay.
You could spread it out over 2 months. The key with the Google Ads credit is all accounts have to be a new account in order to be eligible. And then you will have to add our account as a manager account so that you will be eligible for it. In some cases, some of you might have received like an offer from Google with a code. But for those of you who didn't, the way to get it would be to add us as a manager, and then in doing so, you should be eligible. The challenge with it is like there's no way to request it. It just by being connected to our account, qualified, and then it just shows up in like X amount of days. So can't really track it today, but we'll keep an eye on it over in our 30-minute sessions, etc. Okay, so when thinking about how your ads show up in Google, you can think of the Google search platform as an auction, and you bidding for users as they make their search. So there's a number of different ways that we bid. We listed a few of the most popular, but we're going to be focusing on maximized clicks as we set up our campaigns, mostly for simplicity and also for the maximum amount of learning that we'll be able to get as a result. Something like manual CPC takes a lot of data and a lot of training to execute, and then target CPA will ultimately be a goal for all of our campaigns to shift into that, but we need data in order to kind of figure out what our average cost per acquisition is going to be. So just like SEO, PPC has that same keyword planning research process. A lot of times you can use the exact same keywords that you might be using for SEO. The key differentiator is that if you want to show up for running shoes tomorrow, you can bid on those keywords and you likely have the opportunity to show up. Is it going to be more expensive? Yes. Can you get there? Yes. So within the Google Ads platform, there's 3 main ways to target a keyword: broad, phrase, and exact. As we start our campaigns, we'll all be in more of a broad match keyword setup. But there's a lot of potential waste that could go into this. So, you know, or if you're selling running shoes, like I said, you could show up for searches for somebody searching for socks for running, or things that have to do with running, but aren't necessarily running shoe specific. So long-term, we'll want to have about 5 or 6 keywords that are an exact match and 1 broad match keyword that helps kind of encompass and lay a blanket over what we're doing. So you might have running shoes as your broad match keyword, but then your exact match keyword would be best running shoes, Tacoma, fastest running shoes, lightest running shoes, best running shoes for a half marathon, things like that. And then giving Google some flexibility with your broad match keyword to find for those other impressions that might ultimately lead to a conversion. Any questions here? And hopefully, if there are questions, and we're feeling a little confused as we walk through the campaign setup, this will start to make a little bit more sense. So the overarching theme with Google Ads is kind of just relevancies, thinking of what somebody searches, you want to show up in your ad. What shows up in your ad should be on their landing page. So if somebody searches running shoes, your ad needs to reflect running shoes, and you need to be sending them to a page that is about running shoes. It's going to be cheaper in the long run because Google takes that relevancy into account, and your conversion rates are going to be significantly higher, your click-through rates are going to be higher. So it's one of the more important concepts with PPC, just understanding that relevancy is key. With Google Ads, you have the ability to layer on targeting, a number of different types. The most popular just being location, demographic, and device. So I imagine for just about every business in here, Tacoma is going to be the primary market, if not Washington State. So we want to make sure that we set up targeting to serve the areas that we want. Otherwise, we're going to be serving ads to people in Connecticut, and that probably doesn't do a lot of us any good. Demographic. Some of you might know exactly who your audience is. You might say, hey, I'm going after 45-year-old men who are married and play tennis. If not, we'll start to see that data as we go along and be able to optimize into that by paying more for those users, paying less for other users, completely blocking other users. So just one of the ways that we'll optimize our campaign and hopefully get more efficient as we go. And then device. So if you're a restaurant trying to get foot traffic, or any retail outlet trying to get foot traffic, you might only want to target mobile devices, and people searching, your product near me. But if you're, trying to garner sales online, you might be better off targeting desktop. Again, most of us probably don't know exactly what we're trying to target quite yet. So we'll take that, we'll look at it, and we'll optimize into the better performing devices as we continue down the road. Google says the average click-through rate is 2%. That's pretty low. So if your ads are only getting about 2%, we know that there's plenty of room for improvement. Our goal should be about 5 to 10% click-through rate. So that being 5% of the people who see your ad on the Google Search Console will click on it. So then additional targeting, we have first-party audiences and Google audiences. First-party audiences would be somebody goes to your website and you want to make sure that you serve an ad to them every time they search anything related to your product. You'll be able to do that with your targeting. And then CRM data, your offline data, so if you have an email list, if you have your customers in Square, there are cases where you're able to upload it into Google and target those users specifically. Not necessarily on a one-to-one basis, but on a general audience. And then Google has a bunch of free data segments as well. Most importantly, affinity versus in-market. Affinity being somebody who likes running, in-market being somebody who is trying to buy running shoes. So those are generally updated in real time. What we will use them for early on is through the observation targeting segment. So we'll see if any, we'll see the people who are clicking on our ads and if they fall into any of these segments. And then in the long run, we'll be either more aggressive or less aggressive towards these different audiences. And then performance, right? Ultimately, the most important thing that we're looking at in Google Ads, right? John Wanamaker's famous marketing quote: half the money I spend in advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. With digital advertising in general, we know which half, we just don't necessarily know how to get rid of that half. So tracking, I know some of the tools that I sent you guys was in order to get tracking. So we could determine if somebody bought a product on your site. We could determine if they signed up for a newsletter, whatever your goal ultimately is. And then some more common metrics that we'll look at, things like click-through rate, conversion rate, our cost per click, and then just general budget pacing. By looking at those things, we'll be able to optimize our keywords, our ad copy, a little bit more difficult long-term landing pages, and then just who we're generally targeting.
Suggestion, like, we kind of gave, percentage earlier, now I can't remember what it was, but I was like, what a good click rate is, what a good conversion, or like a range. I know it's gonna be different depending on our.
Yeah, it's definitely different by industry. I think at a minimum, we could go 5%. For pretty much any industry, like you should be outside of like banking and finance, 5% is a pretty achievable goal for a click-through rate. And with conversion rate, I mean, 2 to 3% is okay. So of that 5% that's clicking on your ads, you want to convert about 2 to 3%. It ultimately is, and that's why we need to be so thorough in making sure that we're optimizing to avoid that waste. One of the challenges with Google Ads is like learning how to be more efficient, and we need that data to do so.
I guess my question is, what's the other end of that? You kind of gave like the minimum, like you don't want to be less than this, but what is a realistic cap? Because for me, I have no. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it depends ultimately, like if you're trying to sell, smoothies online, that might be easier to sell than cars, right? So you'll have a higher conversion rate.
so maybe like what the
Yeah, what's your business? So something like a cleaning company, like I would imagine it's probably pretty competitive, but if you're just trying to get people to like send a contact form online, so you don't have to pay anything, you could get as high as 10% conversion rate. So yeah, I mean, again, if you're not like, if your goal is to get somebody to buy something right away, just submit a form, join your email letter, like conversion rates are going to change depending on your goal. So as we're building our campaign, just like thinking of how Google Ads works as a platform. So everybody will have their Google Ads account. Within that, we can build campaigns. At the campaign level, you're going to control things like your budget, your targeting, and most bidding is going to live at that campaign level. And then in a campaign, we have an ad group. So an ad group is where we're going to assign keywords to, and in doing so, we can create specific ads that are connected to those keywords. So again, using the running as an example, somebody might sell shoes and somebody might sell shorts. You would have a shoes ad group and a shorts ad group. Different keywords assigned to those, and then different landing pages. One going to shoes, one going to landing pages. And then, yeah, so any questions here, or we can just kind of jump into the building of our campaign. Perfect. Let's see if I can So yeah, give us a second while we try to figure out the setup. I don't know, is there like a,
Should plug it into the,
is it not plugged in?
this one, the white one is plugged in.
Uh, I imagine it's like a
Should be.
input. Is there another? I guess while we're figuring this out, if everyone wants to just pull up Google Ads. That will do it. Okay, so did anyone have any issues setting up Google Ads? Everyone should have an account set up, ready to go, credit card information set up on file.
When I go, when I hit like start now,
Oh,
it says, it says get started with Google Ads will give you $500 credit. When I hit that, it says claim this offer. Should I do that?
yeah, you can take, if there should be a code. If anyone else gets that, we can go into tools and settings, billings and promotions. And then this is where you'll add it or see if any other promotions became active. Yeah.
Some of us have shared that we're a little bit concerned about your, so I heard today they're gonna help us get an ad running by today. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal.
Okay. No, I thought you said you weren't, ready. I don't feel like I'm ready to launch anything today. Like, prepare for that. I'm just concerned about the whole baseball thing.
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for how the date was set, but I'm pretty sure in order to like wrap up everything with the city of Tacoma, that was the deadline that they set. Yeah.
Like, I don't think I can have a website, because I'm not even there yet.
Okay.
Like, I feel like.
Yeah, so generally, do you have a Google, what's your business?
General contract.
General contracting. So do you have like a physical location or? So,
And I don't wanna run ads and like, it's just me and my husband. And
yeah.
we can't do it and they're giving us fatty upper. That's my, you know, like,
Yeah, so we'll probably have a few steps. We can do this, and then when we talk, we'll talk about kind of the.
And Google calls me all the time. I'm just like, no, we're not prepared.
Yeah, so anytime you do get those emails or calls from Google, I would generally ignore them.
Yeah, because I'm like.
Their goal is to
"Oh,
get you to spend more.
You're in Seattle."
So
Not giving you no information over the phone.
Are you here next Friday when they do the luncheon one?
I will not be.
Is there someone from your, because what I was wondering is if we got the understanding of how to put it together, and then we could execute next week, but we'd have the week to really think through how we're targeting
Sure.
it, get the visuals that we want to include, you know, all of those pieces.
So the next 3 Mondays at 9 a.m. we'll have like a via Zoom time for everyone to come in, and we'll go over. We'll have some preset topics, or it can just be, hey, I have questions, I need to go over it. So I don't know if David sent out the links yet, but if he hasn't, we'll get them to you guys.
Yeah.
So can I just?
So tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday,
Sorry, what was the question?
you said for the next 3 days,
Next 3 Mondays.
all 3 Mondays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in regards to your hesitation about moving forward because you want to think it through, I heard that from all of you. Stu was just mentioning that for the next 3 Mondays in a row, starting on Monday the 17th, is holding 1-hour Zoom sessions. Do you have some time to think about it? But this is what the program is, right? And just do what Stu did mention is that we're given a limited amount of time to close out the program. So you have a limited amount of time, unfortunately, you miss one piece to create that and take advantage of that opportunity.
Yes.
And, right, did you hear that?
No.
Sometimes you gotta go for it and learn from it. So what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah. I would say if we don't have a website, let's figure that part out first. But if you have a website, like, we can change the types of goals to just be, let's get people to sign up to my email, or let's just get people to view my menu, whatever it is. So we can shrink the goals, knowing that this is ultimately, free money, if you will. Obviously, we want to take advantage of it and get the most out of it.
Well, that is kind of free money.
Yeah,
You just got to spend a
Yeah.
little bit first,
exactly.
but ultimately you don't spend it.
Right. So, yeah, and then in addition to, like I said, those, the 3 Monday Zoom sessions at 9 a.m. Everyone here has the opportunity to reach out to us for a 30-minute like individual consult. So please take advantage of that. All right, so as we talked about kind of the hierarchy of just general Google Ads, I'm in my account right now. I'll be able to see,
Are we supposed to be that far along?
yeah, so I mean, I guess if everyone has Google Ads open, this should ultimately be more or less the screen they see, with some differences in view.
So you just
I'm
go
a little
to,
confused,
Yes,
because we were talking about setting up the Google Ads, we have a website, so which Google, I'm trying to go, which landing page are we supposed to go to, in our own personal thing, or just put Google Ads and this will pop up?
so has everyone set up a Google Ads account? Okay, that's probably where we gotta start. So if you go to the email from Surfrider Media, operations at, there's likely a link for Google Ads, or you can just Google Ads, and we'll just create an account quickly. And then in doing so, you'll ultimately be able to get to this portion. Yeah,
that would be step 5, right? Google up ad analytics and ad rework, right?
yeah, so we'll just focus on the Google Ads portion for now.
Yeah. That's the one that kills me.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, okay. All right. Please click here, is that correct? Create a Google Ads account, okay. Yeah. And then this thing. Right.
Okay, so while we have some people setting up the Google Ads, we'll just walk through the keyword planner real quick, as one of the tools we talked about. So at the top, you'll see a tools and settings area, and we could jump into the keyword planner here. Assuming the internet works, we'll be able to get it.
Work through this side of the room.
I just gotta jump over.
It's the next steps, you know, so if you can go in your figure it out, don't worry about it.
So a little bit of a delay with the internet.
Yeah, it's slow.
Not great. Okay, so while we can't necessarily get the Google Ads keyword planner, I'll just kind of give you guys a quick. Here's the other tool that I use. The concept will be the same, but like the process of it differently. I don't know that we're gonna be able to get this to load. If we do, we'll just jump in. So ultimately, I talked about one of the tools being SEMrush. You know, they have this keyword research tool. So can I get a volunteer to just give me their business?
Rejuvenation, junction, massage and spa.
Massage and spa, perfect. So we're ultimately going to search kind of the basic keyword to start, right? And with that, we'll start to get an idea of how many people are looking for this word, how difficult and how competitive it is, what our cost is going to be for those keywords. So you can see something like massage and spa. You know, we have $1.06 cost per click average. That's not necessarily expensive by any means, but you can see how it would add up if you know, that's only going to get you
400.
Yeah, and then if you're hoping for a 5% conversion rate from that, you know, yeah. But what we would do in this scenario is we would probably want to get more long tail, right? Because that's still a pretty big thing. People are looking for a lot of different things. So this tool is not going to be great for smaller keywords like that. But just looking at here, right, we can start to see if you offer hand, stone, massage, and facials, right? This is going to be a little bit less competitive. And we can start to get those clicks at 91 cents, right? So thinking about how to turn that high level keyword into more unique keywords. Yes, we're going to have less people searching this, but with our budgets and with our scale, we don't even really need 12,000 people, right? We only need 500 searches or 500 people to click on our ads. So this should be plenty of. If we were looking,
Swedish massage.
yeah, so. Again, Google Ads keyword probably would have punched something out there, but then if we look at, you know, once you start adding Tacoma in the local qualifiers, it definitely becomes easier to start to win for those keywords. So, you know, a volume of 2,400, that seems like a pretty good number for, I would imagine, most businesses here to think about their keywords. We have a difficulty score of 32. That means it's very possible for us to be competitive with this keyword. And, you know, while it might be more expensive, they're going to be more qualified in something that we're interested in. So there's not necessarily like a perfect way and perfect art. It's just going to be, hey, let's choose 5. Let's start with those. Let's see what Google does, and then we'll either remove them or we'll add as we get more data. But generally, kind of the process of just starting broad and trimming down as we go, right? Like couples massage Tacoma would be a perfect one if that's something you offer, right? Just based on the volume and simplicity of it. Like no one else is going after that keyword. So it would be a huge opportunity for you to win and potentially get, you know, 5-10% of the 320 searches per month.
So with the difficulty rate number, is it, a scale of like 1 to 100, or how does that?
Yeah, it's 1 to 100. Generally anything under like, for this room, anything under 50 would be kind of what we would go after. But that's also more like the SEO portion of it. So we kind of have to just think of, okay, well, if a bunch of people aren't going after it via SEO, they're probably not even paying for it either. So there's an assumption that goes into it. Wish we could use the Google Ads one because it'd be more relevant. But that's not the world we're going to live in today. So, oh, there you go.
Are we gonna get a link for this presentation that we could go back and review it?
Yeah, we can send it.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so keyword plan is not working right now, so we're going to skip that portion, but we will review it on Monday with a little bit more added value. So I think just in the interest of time, we're gonna move through just to give us, that high level, let's get this campaign rocking. So if you're able to follow along, please do. Otherwise, we can talk. So when you're looking at your campaign objective, my general recommendation here would be to go without a guidance. Google's in the business of automation, so they want to automate as much as they can. And in doing so, it's going to take away some of the controls that would ultimately help us be more efficient, right? Like Google doesn't want you to be efficient, they want you to spend. A little backwards thinking, but ultimately it's the truth. So we're always going to create a goal without a goals guidance. And for this purpose, we're going to focus completely on search campaigns. So for just about everyone in here, the best way to start is going to be a search campaign. Given, $500 isn't going to go that far, we're going to get the most bang for our buck in search. So with Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, some of the tools we talked about in the pre-work, this is where we'd be able to measure more accurately a specific goal. So if your goal was email signups and you had a place on your site for people to sign up via email, you'd actually be able to track that action and link it back to your campaign, specific keywords, assign it to specific audiences. So in our one-on-one session or on Monday, we'll be able to dig into this a little deeper, hopefully. But for now, we're really just going to be able to go after like website traffic and getting qualified users to your website. Again, you can always just skip the results because we don't really want Google to automate things for us. As far as a campaign name goes, like I have a nomenclature that I would normally keep, but you just want to be specific enough that if you're running multiple campaigns, you can identify it easily. So if we were running a search campaign in Tacoma, just something simple like that. So then we talked about bidding, right, and the different ways you can bid. When you're thinking about this year, right, I don't know what our conversions are going to be per individual. So we're not going to focus on conversions as a group. And, for somebody launching a new campaign, you probably wouldn't want to start that way anyways. We're going to focus on clicks. This way, it gives us the most opportunity to not limit ourselves and ultimately get the most efficient cost per click available. If we are going after conversions, Google might say, hey, this person is very likely to convert. I'm going to spend $30 on them. And if they don't convert, it's very limiting. So ultimately, When bidding, we're gonna focus on clicks. In our campaign settings, this is gonna be a lot of the targeting and a lot of the general gotcha steps that Google has. So in the networks, we want to be sure that we turn off display and search network. So ultimately, the search network would be if you were on like a website and you saw, they have a search bar in their website, you could show up there. It just tends to be less efficient. So again, with our budget, there's no need for us to appear there. And then display network, you could show up well outside of the range of a Google search, the Google Search Console. So we want to avoid that, despite what Google suggests. So we'll unclick those, turn them off, and then here's where we'll do targeting. So looking at obviously we want to set a location, and for this, we'll just do Tacoma. We're going to target, and then we want to look at down here where it says the type of targeting. So the default is presence or interest. So people in Tacoma, and then people who search for Tacoma or search something related to Tacoma. So, if the orcas were seen swimming by Tacoma and there's an article and somebody in California saw that article and searched it, they would then fall under the interest category. So for local businesses and most businesses, we want to stick with people who are actually in that targeted location. So we'll identify presence. Languages is as simple as it sounds. The key would be that if you're going to target another language, try to create those ads in that language. Don't target French users with an English ad. And then audience segments. So we talked about how there's your first party audience, which none of us are going to have to start, and then the Google affinity segments. So sticking with the massage theme, none. So there's none for massage, but we might have health. So then we just kind of want to go through and start to see some of these that might be relevant to our business. So health and fitness buffs seem like a good one to me. People who work out are probably a really good opportunity for a massage and spa. So you can be pretty liberal with these because, again, we're going to start with an observation targeting. So we're not going to limit our campaign to these people. But if somebody who engages with our ads clicks on them, we'll be able to identify that they were part of this audience and then later on be more aggressive towards these audiences. So there's no negative to just adding a bunch and seeing what works, other than if we have too many, it's going to be brought too thin and chaotic. So maybe add 5 or 10 and go from there.
Can you measure then which one of those areas of interest for the people that clicked on your ad?
Yeah, so that's one of the optimizations that we'll look at once we have some spend behind it. Is okay, 70 people that converted came from the fitness products and services. Let's bid more aggressively towards that audience segment. And then just our general timing. So if you guys are very intent that, hey, I don't want these to run past May 12th, we can set an end date. Otherwise, the general best practice would just be to start this the day you're working on it and then pause the campaign later, as opposed to setting a start date in the future, because it limits some of the setup that you can actually do. And then ad schedule, right? Just as simple as it sounds. If you're a business that's only open to 9 to 5, you probably only want to run your ads 9 to 5. If you have people answering the phone Tuesday at noon, let's just run Tuesday, ads Tuesday at noon to get people to call then. But for most e-commerce businesses, starting with a 24/7 approach probably works. Identifying if there is a certain time, right? If people are only buying your product after work, then we can limit our times that our ads are gonna serve to only those hours. So I wouldn't be proactive with your ad schedule unless you have a store that has very specific hours and you're trying to drive people ultimately to your store.
So you said if you have a brick and mortar and you're open 9 to 5, you wouldn't run the ads 9 to 5?
No, so that's why I would run them 9 to 5 when
okay,
you're
right.
open. Yeah, you wouldn't want to run them after hours if you know, you wouldn't want to pay for somebody to see your ad and then show up and then you're not there.
Right.
Yeah.
I currently offer services and I want to start offering to Square to sell some products online to more than I want to treat those as two separate campaigns. I definitely want people to like have my contact form and inquire about setting up. Like that's a different process than just having them come and purchase like a gift card, for example.
Sure.
So like, would it make sense for me to actually create two different campaigns with different purposes?
Yeah,
Or
so
would it make sense just to have them all on my website?
so we talked about how like relevancy is key. The more drilled down you can get, the better. In that case, you're almost always going to be better off having two campaigns, an e-commerce campaign and a sign-up campaign. This way you can control the budgets. You can see which ad campaigns are driving like what goals, right? Because you're gonna have different goals for each one. So you wouldn't want to like have one campaign set up to different goals. You can control how much budget you want to spend on one, right? If one is more profitable, you probably want to spend more budget on one. An e-commerce site, you could probably have a larger like radius of where you're targeting. And just all the like different searches, right? Somebody's probably going to be searching something different to buy than they would be to just inquire.
Yeah, that's like I like actually or gift card is like a gift for their family member. I was thinking like doing it during like before certain holidays to be able to like when they do campaigns, right? Before certain this is the whole
Yeah. So generally I would avoid trying to like run a Google Ads campaign for like a 3-day holiday or 3-day sale. Think of it as like at least a 2-week kind of window of what you're going to be running. Probably even short. So like, most of our clients are in like more of like a 3-month time frame minimum. Because it just does take some time to ramp up, learn, and then once you're spending, like keeping that consistency and figuring out how to scale from there.
I feel like that's how the stores work. They sell you stuff 3 months before the actual holiday, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. So that's a question. Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify something. You said when you have e-commerce, you can set up your target for almost 24 hours.
Yep. Yeah, so you could do that, or if you had them running for the 24 hours and we saw a window that the ads were just performing better, you might cut off some of those hours to avoid the waste, right?
Concentrate on the hours that we do.
Yeah, and then just save some money. So at this step, we can kind of look at it this 2 ways. One, we might already have our keywords identified. 2, we want to get some suggestions. This is like a cheapened version of the keyword planner, but we'll still use it just for. Okay, so right off the bat, we start to see on the side the estimates that we're going to be able to spend, general costs, etc. So this gives us a good sense of like, okay, are my keywords too niche? Are they too broad? Do I need to trim them down? Like, am I going to be able to spend my budget? So here, we're plenty good, $112 per month or per week. And just like, looking at this, like we're going to have more than enough. So when building keywords, and when thinking of keywords, when we talked about, there's broad match, phrase match, and exact match. Right now, these are all broad match, so it's gonna be a very wide range of searches that could trigger these keywords. If we wanted to make these exact matches, we're gonna use these, I don't know what they're called, straight brackets. And then that will make this keyword now an exact match and trim the amount of searches that it's going to result. So now only keywords that have couples match in it, or searches that have couples massage in it, will trigger. And then all of these would still be broad match. So, and then if we want to do a phrase match, it's going to be quotes. So anything with couples massage near me in it could still trigger. And if you notice, by doing those, it didn't necessarily change our cost at all.
So that enter keywords list, is that a list of all the keywords that are going in your campaign there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is way too many, right? Like I would never, if I was starting, I'm gonna suggest that you guys probably have no more than 10. And thinking of it as maybe 1 to 2 broad match keywords, 2 phrase, and then the rest exact if possible. So just being as specific as you can on exactly who you want coming to your business. You know, thinking of massage and spa, like massage and spa, or massages available today, time qualifiers, location qualifiers. The more specific we can get, the better, assuming that we're going to be able to actually get searches for those words.
And then the exact match ones, those have quotes.
The exact match have the brackets.
Oh.
These guys.
Oh, I see.
And we're also going to be able to change it in once we actually have the ad generated. And then the phrase match have the quotes. So it's a general phrase.
Oh,
okay.
Do people use these campaigns to drive traffic to their social media sites? Or just mostly websites?
I would never do it that way. If I was going to do that, I would run ads in the social media platform. In almost every scenario, you're going to be better off driving to your own operated website for a number of reasons. One, you can then track those people. You can, you know, if you're collecting emails, then it becomes your email list, not somebody else's email list. And then ultimately, like Google might punish you for driving to a third party.
Okay. And one more question. So you had shown earlier the page, and I've seen that where you type in Google and then you get a bunch of pictures up there, like shopping or whatever. And then underneath you have all those web results. So if I run a campaign for, say, like Mother's Day greeting cards, my thing might come up in those photos.
So to oversimplify from a search campaign, no. So in order to like get this, there's a bit more of a process than we're going to cover today. It ultimately, like, you would ultimately have to set up a Google Merchant Center. With that Google Merchant Center, you'd have to run a shopping or performance max campaign. So there's a number of steps in order to show up here. But where you would show up would be like, spell it correctly. You would be one of these top sponsored ads, right? As opposed to an SEO where you'd be down here. So, and then we talked about the Google business profile. So, so if you don't have the Google business profile, you have no chance of showing up in these local listings. And these are some of the most valuable listings you can get, you know, especially if you have that brick and mortar and you want people walking into your store or finding you, you know, as they're in that actual search for the product. And you can't run ads for the local listings like this outside of running an ad in Google Maps.
So I have so for the Mother's Day greeting card example, I sell my greeting cards on Etsy, but I do have a website. but I wouldn't drive this traffic to Etsy. Would I, or would I drive it to my website and then have a link like on the homepage for people to buy that way?
In a perfect world, you would sell them on your website.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, I would send them to a very specific landing page about that greeting card.
Okay.
And then, you know, say buy, like have that buy now and then go to your Etsy page. But I would also say like Mother's Day greeting cards is going to be a very like, it's a fairly generic term.
Yeah.
So you'd probably want to be like, you know, first time Mother's Day greeting cards or my sister is a mother greeting card, right? And then send them to a landing page with a greeting card that is much more specific. Because this is going to get costly pretty quickly. So the more you,
having that broad.
yeah, the more like unique you can get, just the better off you're going to be.
But then, like you said, the 10 keywords that we choose for our campaign, one of my broad terms could be Mother's Day greeting cards, but I maybe only want to do 2 of those, and then the rest would be very specific.
Yeah, if you're going to have something that broad, that would probably be your broad match, and then your exacts would just be like some much more specific. Okay, so we have our keywords, and remember, this is an ad group that we're currently building. So as we start to build our ad, we want our ad and our URL to be very specific to those keywords. So I don't have a URL, so I'm just going to make one up. It's going to be trouble. And again, if we were talking about like Swedish massages, I would want to be sure I sent them to a Swedish massage landing page, because the more specific we can get, the better off we're going to be. And at the same time, you might say like, hey, my website doesn't have those unique pages. Build one, separate it, do whatever you need to do. But if you're going to be running an ad for something specific, make it so when they go to your site, it can be more specific. Your display path is what's actually going to show up. So this gives your user an idea of what they're going to be clicking on. So, you know, your URL, Swedish, not a requirement for these, but very much encouraged. The more real estate you can take up on the landing page, the better off you're going to be. So then when building our headlines, there's a couple things we want to consider. You know, I talked about relevancy being key. We want to make sure that if we're going after a specific set of keywords, that we more or less regurgitate them in our ads without, you know, being overly generic. So our goal is always going to be ad strength excellent. I'm probably not going to be able to get there in this setup, but by doing you start to see how you can trigger or be identified as these keywords, and it will start to add that relevancy. So all Google ads are dynamic. So you have the option to set up to 15 different headlines, which is generally the recommended number that you should add. But it's going to use its machine learning to ultimately determine which headlines are going to provide the highest click-through rate. So it's a little challenging as like a small business who's trying to like figure out how to, you know, scale a campaign, because we do have to go into this with a little bit of a guess. But as long as you cover your keywords, and then, you know, I would always have my business name, parlor, and then thinking about like the different types of like call to actions that you're interested in. So if you wanted somebody to book now, that would be a good one. If you wanted them to buy now, etc. If you have a tagline that you think might be a good fit. Ultimately, you can get a little creative with your headlines as long as you still have your keywords covered. And when building them, case sensitive is always the preference. There's been a number of tests out, and by having a capital on each word, it's just going to perform better.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, that also helps when it comes to like the Braille clients doing the search when you have the capital?
I did not know that, but that's very possible. Yeah, I don't want to speak to that because I don't know the exact answer, but it would make sense. So then descriptions, this is where we would get a little bit more in depth about our business and what we're offering, what we're trying to sell. It can be up to 90 characters. It should be, again, include those keywords that we're targeting. Something about your business that makes you unique, similar to what Yura was talking about, how we want them to be able to know exactly what they're getting into when they click on this ad. So it's, again, it's going to be different for every business. A lot of times if you have like, whatever is on your homepage in that first paragraph, a lot of times you can just regurgitate it into your ad because, hey, you probably put it there because that's what's important to your business. And then just rearranging it to include those keywords, those headlines, and including some form of call to action that shows, that tells our users what to do. Click now is probably not the best one for something like book now, call now, visit now. Those are going to be a little bit more actionable. So this won't be available to everybody, but some business will have the ability to put their business name in, a business logo. Images is also in beta. So just, the same type of photos you use on Instagram, high quality, no text in any of the images if it offers it. And then we have extensions. So extensions are going to be optional when creating an ad, but we talked about taking up as much real estate as possible on the Google search, on the search. So recommended at the minimum to do a site links and a call out. So site links gives you the opportunity to, in addition to the landing page that we want people to go to, send them to secondary pages on your site. Yeah.
There's no text in your ad.
So sorry, no text in your images if you have the ability to do it. Not everyone's gonna have the ability to add an image yet, but if you can, highly recommended. So the site links, yeah, like I said, it gives you the opportunity to send people to third-party landing pages, or not third-party, but other landing pages within your website. So you think your homepage, your about page, your contact page, or your like donate now page, if that's something you might have, or any pages that you might consider sending traffic to that isn't the actual product or offer that you're going for. And then there's a number of other extensions that we won't dig into too much, just because, again, they're optional and that can be relevant for every business. If it is a phone number that if you're trying to drive calls to your website, adding the option to have calls in the ad is highly recommended, because then you can track it directly without too much heavy lifting. So I know we probably jumped a few steps and it made this a little bit more confusing than hoping. But any questions where we are right now? So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go. Okay, so once we have our keywords and our ad created, we'll confirm, we'll go to the next step, and then this is where you'll put in your budget. Google's gonna recommend a bunch of different budgets to you. It's just like a menu at a restaurant. They'll have their most expensive, their cheapest, and then kind of where they think you should spend. This is where you would put in your 1851 in order to pace, or however much you want to spend per month. Remember that formula, 30.4 times your number of daily spend to get to that monthly spend that you're comfortable with.
Does it limit it then? So if you put in the budget, when it hits that place, what happens?
So you'll never spend more than your budget in a month, and you will. Google usually does a pretty good job of pacing accordingly. So the first 5 days you might spend twice your budget, no more than ever twice your daily budget, but you might spend twice your budget. Some days you might only spend 5% of your budget, 10% of your budget, but over the course of 30 days, you'll generally spend around that 1831.
But it's controlled by the clicks, correct?
Right.
So if you get mass, just so I understand, if you get a lot of front-loaded clicks, then does the ad just stop for the rest of the month?
So you'll never spend more than twice your budget, your daily budget in a day, right? So if your budget's $18, you'll never spend more than $36 in a day. But if you spend $36 for the first 15 days, yeah, in theory, you would turn off. I've never seen that happen when it's like Google usually will keep it fairly consistent. So you might spend your $18, by 10 a.m. that morning, and you won't run for the rest of the day. But generally, you'll run through the.
So then they would stop showing your ad that day?
Yeah.
Is that how? Okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the things you might say, hey, like, I stopped running by 9 a.m. Like, I clearly need to throw more budget because it's working so well. Or, I'm getting all these clicks before I even show up to work and people are calling me. Let's not even run ads till 9 a.m. and keep them in that window. Right. So, they have a question right there.
Oh, yes. So if I were to do a campaign and I want to spend more than $500 and I get the receipt from Google, how would I just send you guys the invoice and you just count just for the 500, or would you have to send something?
I think that might be a perfect question for David. So if they send you a receipt for like $1,000, you'll just give them the 500, right? Like that's fine if they send you a receipt for over 500.
Yeah, why would we?
Well, because if they wanted to spend more money.
If I want to spend more than 500,
Right.
but just use the 500.
Just invoice it.
Yes, okay.
But I guess the receipts in Google
That's what I'm
wouldn't be
saying.
able to like.
It's more than
Yeah.
500, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That'd be fine.
Okay, so yeah, you'll invoice for the 500, but your receipt might reflect more.
I have a question.
Yeah,
When you started your campaign, did you do Performance Max or search?
search. Yeah, so Performance Max is,
That's going on YouTube, that's basically.
yeah,
going
it's
all
gonna run on
over.
everything. For our budgets, there's no way that we're gonna be able to run a campaign that's like that. So we just wanna be very like, we're gonna run a search campaign to start. Yeah.
How do you add you guys? Campaign?
All right, great question. So we set our budget, we go next. It's gonna give us a review. I don't think it's gonna let me publish this campaign. It's pretty, there's probably a lot of errors in it. Okay. Then I would say it would give me a final review or tell me if anything needed to be fixed. You could go fix it. We're gonna. I guess one of the fun things about doing things live. Okay, so yeah, it says, hey, fix some of those errors. I say no. So when you're adding, yeah.
The website versus last
So I know that you're able to get a Square website paid for. Yes, so I would go that route potentially, but your business profile could be, I would do your website. Yes. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so when you're adding us as managers, you're gonna go to tools and settings, access and security. No, I lied. That's gonna give us user control. So basically, you're gonna take this 10-digit number up on their right and just email it to the email that we sent you, and then we will request access as a manager. you can ultimately limit, like, I think we only need editor access to do most of
So,
anything. We'll request an invite and then you'll get an email and just accept that invite. So yeah, this 10-digit number, just email it to us and then we'll request access. Ideally before Monday or before we talk one-on-one. So then, this campaign's not a great example, but we are running a small campaign for Kaitita. Basically, like, our first steps after we run would just kind of be to get a sense of, like, okay, is my campaign doing what I would expect it to do? So if I'm starting to look at a campaign that's live, first I'm going to make sure that I have the full slate of dates. I can go into campaigns and get a high level view of what's starting to run, and then start to get like a sense of these different metrics that we talked about. So, you can start to see that, hey, we're garnishing about a 10 to 15% click-through rate. If we continue that long term, we know that our copy is very good. But if we get no conversions from that, we know that our landing page probably needs to be optimized or our product needs to be optimized. If this was a 1% click-through rate, then we probably know, hey, we need to update this before we even start considering about our landing page. And then we can start to look at our keywords. So we can see which keywords ultimately triggered searches, and then we can get a sense of actual search terms that people are actually searching. So again, pretty small campaigns, we don't have too much data and not as helpful as I would hope, but you can start to see that some of these are a little bit more long tail. The near me qualifiers are always going to, in 99% of situations, having near me or your city and location is going to be a huge boost to just any general ad that we can run. So thinking of it that way. And then ultimately just coming back to your overview page and looking down the line and just really this early in a campaign, making sure nothing stands out. But yeah, so that's the expedited version of launching a Google Ads campaign. So, yeah. Okay, so if you're in Google Ads, you'll see this, you'll have a 10-digit ID. So just email us that. Email us, we're gonna have to request access to it, and then you'll get an email saying, do you wanna approve it? And then just go ahead and approve. This way we can both, Kelly and I will both have access, and you'll be attached to our manager account. Being attached to our manager account is what triggers that that code. So any other questions? All right. So yeah, I will stick around a little bit for any one-on-one questions, or else, we hope to see you guys on Monday, 9 a.m.
To sign up for the 30-minute one-on-one, how do you do that?
Just email. Email and ideally provide some times that work for you, and then we'll try to accommodate. Otherwise, we'll just get back with some times.
Yeah, so we have the 3 Mondays,
Yeah.
and then we have 30 minutes each.
Yeah.
One-on-one.
Well, 1 on 2. He's kind of
One-on-
will be there as well.
One. Thank you very much. That's a. Everyone's at a different place, so I know the challenge.
Is the 3 days, so that's on
Yes.
Yes.
Zoom, and then, do you sign up for a slot?
I feel like my whole
Up to you.
Okay.
I guess, if it were me, I might go to all 3 because I need more information. But somebody might feel satisfied.
We'll like I said, we'll have some like some material that we'll cover unless there's questions. So on the first Monday, we'll likely cover conversion tracking. So for the businesses that want to actually add the ability to track conversions, we'll run through that. And then Tuesday and Wednesday will be more focused on optimizations, or the next Mondays. But if there's questions, we'll just spend the time answering questions.
Are you sending out the links?
I believe David already has. If not, keep an eye out.
So the first one is gonna be
Monday,
on Monday, the 17th.
if that's the
And you're
next
taking,
Monday.
and you're just saying that you're taking this one step further, you're focusing on optimization.
Yeah, or just general questions to get to that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody catch up?
You're gonna send out the PowerPoint?
I can send out the PowerPoint, yeah, or I can have David do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna send everybody the, thank you.
Yeah.
Did we do that already? We're gonna send everybody the master presentation too, so you'll get every single slide you saw today. To just, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just plugged in and updated, and so we should be able to integrate it pretty easily. And we'll send it all out to you. Say it. Survey, yeah, David's gonna help us with that. Right on.